Oh, I'd like to call to order the June 8th, 2021 regular meeting of the Mercer County Board of Supervisors. Please stand for a moment of silence. Mr. Rutherford, lead us in the pledge.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My mic doesn't seem to be working. I will try to speak up. First order of business is public comments. Please, if anybody wishes.
Probably more for you to have one than me.
Okay, thank you.
I got it figured out.
Okay.
I don't know.
Please give your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Your address.
This one works. My name's Tommy Bruguiere, 187 Jacks Hill Road, Roseland, Virginia. We have a matter concerning parking for the Blue Ridge Trail down there. We need to expand that parking lot. A lot of times it's full and there's no other place to go, and I don't want people parking alongside the road like they do in other places. Plus, if there's horse trailers there, it limits the space too. So I think the landowner could be talked into maybe donating some of that. I think it's James Fitzgerald. If we could just get an acre there. Also, there's another spot up at the Appalachian Trail in Cairo. Many times on weekends, there's cars parked up and down both sides of the roads. Of course, I don't know actually who owns that parking lot now. Whether it's the Forest Service or what, but I think these two things could, Parks and Rec people could look into some of this. I think it's something's necessary. I don't know if any of y'all were up last year during the fall at Crabtree Falls, overflowed on that, cars parking up and down the road. We don't have a parking ordinance in this county, so I think the sheriff is limited to what he can do. So maybe something we could look at that, because it's a safety factor when you got people on that narrow road parking up and down. Maybe VDOT could do something too. But another issue, before I left the board, I gave a couple of directives. One, to get that old post office in Manchesville torn down, and letters were sent, and nothing's been done, and that's been over a year. It's not only an eyesore, but it's a danger. Excuse me. They got a little fence around it. A tree went down during that small windstorm we had a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, it missed the building and didn't take that down. But that's
Who owns
one.
that? The Lee still on that?
No, Lance Gaines owns it. But now the roof is falling in, it's still got the scaffolding up all the way.
That scaffolding's been up for years.
It has, and so, and that's in danger of falling. So it's right on that corner there by the church and where you go up to the convenience center. So that's something that,
Maybe Steve needs to write a letter to the owner and
Yeah,
see
we do that, of
what
course.
his intentions are.
well, I think the building inspector has written a letter or directive to tear the building down according to our ordinance. So, but it's been going on for over a year since I've been up there. And there was another one up there at the tea room there that junk cars were supposed to be taken care of up there. I brought the request to, planning and zoning down there. And I don't, there's some been removed, but nothing's really been going on for, it's been over a year. So I think these two things need to be looked at. As far as the roads go, I was kind of disappointed that the Jack's Hill and Campbell's Mountain Road weren't at the head of the list to be surfaced, to finish. Because they're,
Robert, I'll tell you, at the top of the list,
They were at the top, they were at the top of the unpaved road priority list, and if I'm not mistaken, they may have made it into the latter years of the 6-year plan. I don't have the plan with me today,
yeah,
but then you all put those roads at the top.
but they were talking about making sure they got finished right away,
yeah.
both projects.
It should be done this year. Anyway, no, and I think, 151 on Brent's Mountain, that road needs to be resurfaced. It's in pretty bad shape. Of course, I know that's a different pool of money, but, since 151 was surfaced, over your way last couple of years, I think this one should be done as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Vergara.
We need to do away with this, mask nonsense for ordinary students.
Our governor said I didn't have to wear it, so I'm not wearing it.
Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, we will close public comments. That brings us to the consent agenda. Before we look to adopt that, there's a few things I'd like, one thing I'd like clarification on, and I talked to Ms. McGarry about this, and this was the money for child services. Could you give us a clarification on that so that I understand what that allocation in the budget is?
Okay. The paperwork provided with the package showed the initial allocation from the state at about $1,030,000. And then our expected expenditures for the year to be about 1.7 million. And the programmatic allocation differs from what's in the budget currently, because based on historical expenditures, we budget 1.6 million roughly in the expenditure budget. So really, we just need to amend our budget for the difference between the 1.7 million in expected expenditures and the current amount that's 1.6 million approximately. So I've requested a budget amendment for $102,104, of which 30.33% is local funds. And then the remaining 70-some thousand would come from the state. Does that help clarify?
It does, and
These are mandatory expenses, not something that we actually have authority over.
That's correct.
Yeah. We've voted on this a couple years ago.
Right.
This is a higher number than 2.
It has happened before, and it does vary from year to year as far as what the actual expenditures turn out to be.
okay. Okay. Any other questions from Ms. McGarry on the budget items?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing I would like to do is read the text of Resolution R 2021-36. Nelson County Board of Supervisors anniversary of the cancellation of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Whereas on July 5th, 2020, Dominion Resources announced the cancellation of the proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And whereas the Atlantic Coast Pipeline represented a risky and unnecessary threat to hundreds of Nelson County landowners, as well as many others in our region. And whereas the pipeline would have cut across steep slopes and through rivers, streams, and wetlands, and put numerous properties at risk of landslides and bodies of water at risk of increased sedimentation and harm to sensitive species. And whereas the pipeline's route would have fragmented some of the most intact forested landscapes in the southeast. And whereas the pipeline would have bisected areas of historical and cultural significance in Wingina and in the Rockfish Valley. And whereas the pipeline project exposed numerous flaws in the regulatory process governing the location and need for such projects. And whereas the route of the pipeline raised issues of environmental justice in rural and minority communities, thereby increasing economic disparities and racial tensions. And whereas the use of eminent domain by private profit-making corporations threatened the sanctity and property rights and the safety and security of property owners and the effectiveness of local zoning and floodplain ordinances. And whereas the continued reliance on fossil fuels puts the region, nation, and world at risk of exacerbating climate change to the detriment of millions of people. And whereas citizen groups in Nelson County and elsewhere organized to protect their fellow citizens from the harmful effects of the pipeline project by mounting political and legal challenges to the project over a 6-year period. And whereas our Nelson County government took an active role opposing the ACP in numerous comments to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Now therefore be it resolved, in recognition of the success of these citizen-led efforts, the Nelson County Board of Supervisors resolves to publicly congratulate and thank those who put the interests of their fellow citizens at the forefront of their concerns in their successful campaign to defeat this misguided project, and hereby establishes July 5th, 2021, the 1-year anniversary of the cancellation of the pipeline project as a commemorative day to celebrate their accomplishments.
You want to discuss this first, or you want a motion first?
Can we just do the whole consent? Or you want to vote on it individually?
Well, I mean, I think some of this is nothing but political talk. And the facts of what did happen is okay, but I got problems with several of the whereas. Whereas, you know, some of the property owners, I'm gonna tell you, most of those property owners that were affected come out pretty good. Some come out with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't know where you say that it went to the minorities. I don't think you can justify that saying. I mean, I have no problem recognizing, but I don't think we need to go to this thing of, you know, about the fossil fuel. That's a debate that it will be forever taken on.
I can comment on it. You know, whenever you have some of these extensive as this, it's going to be differences. But I think the key point is the people of Nelson County, for a variety of different reasons, not all the same reasons here, stood up to a corporation that was manipulating the system in order to assure a profit that they would have, which had to do with the capital investment that they made. And that, yeah, if we could debate each of these, but we should celebrate that we all got together to stand up for something that didn't make sense in any way.
Well, cut it back to those facts, and I have no problem with it. As far as the other, you know, it's trying to make it out to be something that it's not.
Well, there's never, one of the bad things in our society today is the idea that there's one opinion and another opinion, or one thing or the other. When something happens, there's always a multitude of reasons for it happening. And this document recognizes there were multiple reasons why people stood up against it. And I don't see the harm in it.
Excuse me, I'm out of order, but this should not be in a consent agenda.
It should, well.
Well, true, you are out of order. Thank you. Just a few points I'd like to make, and then Mr. Rutherford, you got something?
Yeah. I have a question.
Why don't you go ahead and then I'll.
Oh, you want me to go ahead? So, I think probably this gets, I know for my stance, when we talked about the pipeline, it was a property rights issue and a serious property rights issue. I don't necessarily, obviously we all know the critical place fossil fuels are in our industry, but I'm also a guy who installs solar panels for a living. I think it is a little bit very political. I think there is some celebration that, hey, I'd be fine with us saying, hey, let us remember today is the anniversary of the cancellation of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and then let people remember for why, for them. Does that make sense? If we were to list it, and I could tell you, I know another dozen people who could add another 10 whereases, we all know that. I don't know what that might mean, Mr. Chairman. I think we could do something. I think we could just say, hey, today's the day that we celebrate the ending of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And then let everybody in the county, in their own head, put their whereas. I understand where you're coming from on it. And I can agree with most of them.
Yeah. Well, for the record, I did let the board know that I was working on this resolution,
Yes.
and that if you had any comments on it, to please get a hold of me, and I didn't
Well,
hear
I
from
saw it
anybody.
yesterday, the first time I seen it.
Well, regardless, a month ago, I said I'd be working on it, right? I was very careful when we're talking about specifics and what happened in the county. All of those are points that were made to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in documents that the county sent to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And so in the different processes that the county was involved in, both in comments and in the lawsuit and in the amicus briefs that we filed, the only point in here that was not one that was county specific that we mentioned was the one that you mentioned about fossil fuels and climate change. And the science on fossil fuel and climate change, with all due respects, is indisputable. None of the points on this are points that the county has not made on the record previously. So that was the reason that these were all included.
Justice said, if you want the intent to remember this, that it was done, then that's all you need.
There's always lessons to be learned. And points that people become aware of, within this whole thing. And the debate that went on about this, people became more aware of certain situations because of it. And many of those are mentioned here.
This resolution both celebrates the people of Nelson County and the government and the administration, because these were positions that were taken by the county. And as a result of, the people of Nelson being involved in this, and the fact that the Atlantic Coast Pipeline was canceled was really a historical victory for all the people that were involved in that, for all the reasons, and more reasons that aren't mentioned.
Oh, sure. I think I'm sorry. I think I believe that we should celebrate the cancellation of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and we need to recognize it. I think it's just, when we add the bullet points, and that's where we are. We're arguing over the bullet points underneath. And, shoot, I don't know what that means. I do know for me, I do like, I think the first one is first whereas, you could do the second whereas. The third whereas, shoot, we went to Supreme Court over that pretty much, right, Ernie? Steep slopes and through rivers and streams.
Right.
I remember sitting in that with you.
And the comments on Wingina and
Sure.
Rockfish Valley were
And
well
some of the historical
documented.
stuff. I mean, I think some of that in there.
Aaron, those historic districts were put in place after the pipeline had actually been filed for.
The county made comments saying that these cultural districts were going to be bisected by the pipeline.
Yeah.
And opposed it for those reasons. And that was what the county said.
But you made Wingina and the part over at Nellis Forward historical differences after the debate of the pipeline had started.
Does that mean they're not of historical significance?
I
Does it?
understand a lot of the rules changed. Flood zone. We went in and tried to redo our flood zone just to make sure that it would affect this. I think it's a great thing, but I mean, but to toot your horn as much as been tooted here, I think that's.
The best one is at the very end. Now therefore be it resolved in recognition of the success of these citizens-led efforts, Nelson County Board of Supervisors resolves to publicly congratulate and thank those who put their interest of their fellow citizens at the forefront of their concerns in their successful campaign to defeat this misguided project, and hereby establishes July 5th, 2021, the 1-year anniversary of the cancellation of the pipeline project as a commemorative day to celebrate their accomplishment. I'd like that. We can establish this as that day,
I would like to include citizen groups in the county in terms of recognition, the last two on page 1.
Okay.
Because
There's no
both
doubt.
of those aspects are worthy of celebration.
Yeah.
The details, if not everyone agrees on the details, so be
we can
it.
argue on that.
But
I think that's fine with those and cons. So the last page, and I think just to keep this a little bit so that it's got the explanation, we do the first whereas. How's that sound? So 1 and the
Okay.
last 2.
okay, let's vote on this separately and then go back to the rest of the consent agenda. So why don't you go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Rowe?
I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
Can I read exactly what I was doing and I'll add the whereases?
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we pass an amended resolution to R 2021-36, Nelson County Board of Supervisors, anniversary of cancellation of Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Whereas on July 5th, 2020, Dominion Resources announced the cancellation of the proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And whereas citizen groups in Nelson County and elsewhere organized to protect their fellow citizens from the harmful effects of the pipeline project by mounting political and legal challenges to the project over a 6-year period. And whereas our Nelson County government took an active role opposing the ACP in numerous comments to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, now therefore be it resolved in recognition of the success of these citizen-led efforts, the Nelson County Board of Supervisors resolves to publicly congratulate and thank those who put the interest of their fellow citizens at the forefront of their concerns in their successful campaign to defeat the misguided project, and hereby establishes July 5th, 2021, the 1-year anniversary of the cancellation of the pipeline project as a commemorative day to celebrate their accomplishment.
Second.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So by voting for this, what are we eliminating the other?
It's an
aspects of it?
amended version.
Um,
Everything I read is the verbatim to that resolution.
The only thing that I see that you would really object to is the thing about fossil fuels. Is there anything else specifically?
we just-
I'm just asking a question.
I mean, I don't think we need to regurgitate the arguments of the pipeline. Again, you could go across down 56 and find 100 different arguments. This is to create the anniversary, the commemorative day of the significant defeat.
No, my question was, which of the whereases do you specifically not like?
I just read them all the whereases that made sense, that were consistent and made this resolution make the commemorative day.
And so,
That would be resolution 1, and then the last 2, and then the last page.
yeah, but which, I'm just curious, which do you?
I don't
object
need to make an argument on every single bullet point. We don't have time for that. We will burn hours. And it's not that I
No,
disagree
I don't
necessarily.
want,
it's not
I'm
necessarily-
just curious, it was just a question.
It's not that I disagree with the other bullet points either. It's just, I know for us to get on with business, this would be a great way to accomplish what we're looking to accomplish and not have to, argue about fossil fuels.
I would like to say for the record, Mr. Barton, is that the whereases in this resolution that are being omitted from the final resolution are well established. They were all,
They're in our courts.
they were all successful arguments to have the pipeline canceled. And anyone could go to the record and take a look at these and realize that none of these were effectively refuted in court or elsewhere. So, so I'm fine with the resolution as you.
Okay.
It was a lot of work.
Also fine.
Ernie worked really hard, so did Tommy. That's the motion, and we had a second, Mr.
So we
Chairman.
have a
I call the
motion and a
question.
second. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Call the question.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes,
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. So we have the rest of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda minus resolution C, since we just did that as presented.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? Mike?
Mr. Harvey?
yes,
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Next, we have the VDOT report. Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon. First thing I'd like to do today is introduce my new assistant. I have 2 assistant residency administrators now. And, Mr. Daniel Brown, he will be working with us as the assistant residency engineer for Nelson County and our other counties. Daniel is a licensed professional engineer, and he has 18 years of experience with VDOT, and he's been a roadway designer for his whole career. And just a real joy and pleasure to introduce Daniel to the board, and he'll be interacting and getting to know everybody and getting worked in all the different programs that we have here in our residence and in Nelson County. So I just want to introduce Daniel to you today.
Nice to meet you, sir. Did you bring your stamp with you? Did you bring your stamp with you?
It's all electronic nowadays.
I
have one.
I got some plans in the car. Thank you, sir. Welcome to Nelson.
The first thing I'd like to present you, we have we've been reviewing some roadway mileages, secondary road mileages, and we found one that has a discrepancy in it. And we've been doing this statewide is to clean up our mileage records for the length of roads to make sure they're accurate. And one came to surface was Castle Creek Lane over near Masters Mill off of Dickey Road. And currently, that road is 0.46 miles long. In our records, it's 0.7 miles long. And we have researched that road and tried to find out where that other 0.24 of a mile went. And I haven't been able to find anything. I've talked to a lot of people, that I thought would know, and to my knowledge, nobody remembers us maintaining that 24 hundredths of a mile. And, there's no, the road is grown up, it's got trees on it, and if it was in the system, it's been years ago, a long time ago. So I want to present to the board, I've got a sketch here that will show we're proposing to do a discontinuance of maintenance for that road. And the reason for a discontinuance is in case we have missed something, and with a discontinuance, we discontinue it for maintenance, but the right of way remains intact.
Sure.
That way, if we ever have an issue in the future, the right of way is still intact, and it would be a matter of taking it back into the system. So that is what I'm presenting that to you. And when we do a discontinuance, we do have to post a willingness for a public hearing. And we will put this in the newspaper if the board has no objections. We will advertise this in the newspaper and receive public comment to see if there's enough interest or any reason we should have a public hearing, at which time, I will come back to the board and ask for a public hearing.
Has anybody looked at some of the deeds up to that section did it reference?
We have researched the deeds, and there is nothing
Okay.
that references it. The only deed was for a parcel on the left, right at the end of the existing road. Some plat up there for, I think it was a 6-acre parcel that was surveyed recently in a recent survey in the plat, and it shows the end of state maintenance right where it's at. So, and there's nothing, there's no reference of any prescriptive easement or anything up through there. So, I feel confident we've done thorough research, on it. But just in case the property owner or someone wants to come forward in the future, this is a discontinuance of maintenance. It's not an abandonment. And that is intentional because we could recover from that if someone did have some property up in there that needed access to that old, through the right of way, it would still be there. So we'll proceed with that unless you all direct me otherwise. And at some point when we get through the willingness period, obviously we'll come back and ask for a resolution from the board for the discontinuance. So that we'll go forward with that unless anybody has any objections.
Do you have any knowledge of use of that stretch of the road?
No, I don't, Chairman Reed, I don't. I couldn't find anything on it. It looked like it was all absorbed in a parcel, in a larger parcel. None of the deeds to any of the properties up there where that road was at reference, the state road or the right of way.
But nothing on the ground would suggest that it's getting any use.
No, it's just, it's wooded, man.
Okay.
It's wooded.
Well, we had that one on Duncan Hollow Loop. I think they actually opened that back up. That was supposed to be a through road, and ended up being a dead end or something, and something happened, and it
You
was
know,
actually
Hill Hollow,
Hill Hollow, yeah.
Hill Hollow comes off Duncan Hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been years ago.
Yeah, that had been not abandoned, but discontinued.
Discontinued, yeah.
Yeah. And
So
that,
discontinuance is good, that way, whatever the original right of way, wherever it was at, it's still in place. It doesn't revert back to the property owners, it's still in place. If it needs to become a public maintained street again.
that's the key thing.
So I'll proceed with that unless you all direct me otherwise. I really don't have a whole lot to report. I made notes here of Mr. Brugier's comments, and he's right. 151 over Brent's Mountain is getting in horrible shape. Unfortunately, our paving dollars that we are receiving through our maintenance funds are because of the new rating systems and what qualifies for resurfacing. But I will check on the pavement rating of 151. That road was paved about 10 years ago. But as most of you know, we treat that section heavily with salt and chemicals, so it doesn't last as long as a typical pavement would because it gets a lot of treatment to keep the ice off of it. But I will check on 151, that section of pavement. We are working up on 664, when we had that issue with the trucks coming over back, I guess, last year or this year. Last year we did the truck restriction. We are up there now doing some pavement widening up in that worst curve right before you get to the Appalachian Trail. We're working on the inside of the curve and the outside. And once we get the widening done, we're going to bring our paving contractor in to work on taking some of that super elevation out of that curve.
What is your intent, to make it truck passable, or?
No, not to make it truck passable, but there's still, I'm sure, to make sure that what trucks do go on there don't cause the problem that they caused in the past. Because this is just our side, you still have the issues on the other side of the parkway in Augusta County. We're not gonna remedy
This
those.
doesn't make sense. And that's just like going up Road 6 and widen all those turns trucks can't make, and they've been prohibited up there.
I mean, the restrictions is in place, but we all know the trucks are still going up through there.
But that doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right, but, and what we see is the best interest of public safety. If we can do some widening up there to make it where those trucks do not get hung up in that curve, even though they're not supposed to be there, it will create a safer condition. I mean, it's just, that's kind of our position is to make it, yes, it does make it more passable, but it doesn't eliminate, we're not going to go back and take the restriction off the roadway.
Is it the responsibility of the sheriff's department to enforce those restrictions?
State police.
State police?
Yeah,
Well,
it's a
probably
safety,
both.
it's a safety issue, Chairman Reed, and when that gets blocked, and this is the main reason for doing, when that gets blocked, it cuts off access. Water Green Fire,
Oh, I
Fire and
understand.
Rescue to respond, and that is really, that to me, that is the biggest reason for us doing this.
I understand the reason. I'm just wondering about enforcement because
Well,
the problem is that it's still being used,
it's still.
and that's the problem. So clearly, the problem hasn't been fixed.
I mean, we knew when we did it that, yes, it should take some trucks off that road, and it's helped. I haven't gotten nearly as many reports. I haven't talked to Mr. Sheets lately to see how many are still he's seeing going up there, or how many they've had to, recovery had to come get, but it's still, that is the main reason for pursuing that widening.
I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but are you saying it's not enforceable?
Sure, it's enforceable. It's fully enforceable, just, it's a
But
total.
something's gotta happen and get them blocked before you can enforce it. Basically.
Man, I don't want to speculate on why. I mean, we all know that between the sheriff's department and the state police, they can't sit up there all the time and write tickets. They just can't stay there. So,
They could up on 6. Because it's a short duration of that, and you know exactly
They spend a lot of time up there, they've written a lot of tickets
Boy,
on six. That's what I was told, Mr. Harley.
I don't know.
They-
I can't
they've
debate that.
written a lot, I don't know the number, so I really shouldn't say a lot. But I talked to the first sergeant, and, you know, he kind of said we've written a lot of tickets. I said, no, what's a lot?
And the thing is, that's a serious ticket for the trucker.
I know it is.
I mean, I mean, if you got a CDL, that is a big, big mark.
And not only that, but the trucks over 65 feet just coming down 151 that are not permitted. You know, they've been, from what I understand from first started around, they've been taking in those pretty heavily too. But, I mean, you
Well,
probably see more than I do.
That's thanks to the fire department, and now nobody's willing to help the fire department with their driveway. From all that damage, all them big trucks coming in there.
But, but we are working there. We do have, we have started working on some rural rustics unpaved roads. I know, we still got to finish High Peak over in Shipman, and we've got, we're working to do the next mile on Cedar Creek. And, we've got about 4 that we want to try to do this year. We're still working on getting those done. We should, I know we've done some mowing on the 4-lane already, kind of cutting some trouble spots, but, we're definitely gonna, next Monday, we'll hit all the 4 lanes. Start our 4-lane mowing, which Kitty, Shipments started mowing this week, I think, they mowed some 4-lane. And, other than that, any special requests from the board?
Yeah, you know, we've talked about it before on Riding Mills Road, right outside of Williamstown, where you go down the Rucker Run. And that's a short, we've talked about it before, you said it's not eligible, but it's a 90, there are 2 curves there. The one closest to the top is almost a 90-degree turn, and you can't see. And this weekend, there was an accident, an unreported accident, but you could see the evidence that there had been an accident. And one of the people who lived there, Jane Williams, you might know her, she called up your office today, and the person who she spoke with seemed to know about it. And seemed to be aware of what she was talking about. You know what I'm talking.
Yeah, I know what you talking about, the intersection of 655 and 722.
Variety Mills and, Williamstown Road.
Yeah, Williamstown.
And then you go down below that, down toward Rucker Run, and there's a sharp curve there, very sharp. And it's totally blind coming both ways. And there's a cliff on the left side, so if a car did get forced off the edge, there probably should be a barricade there, but, that's not the point. We need a sign there, we need a sign coming both ways. That's a dangerous curve, and people know who live there are very careful when they go through there, but not everybody lives there.
That
And I
was
just
reported to the sheriff's office.
What?
That was reported to the sheriff's office. I got a call, but
It was reported,
yeah, I got a call, but I didn't have anybody sent.
but I think somebody called in about it, but they didn't know who was in it, I don't know,
Well, the sheriff's probably wanted to call me for a
Yeah.
record, but
yeah.
I didn't have nobody.
But anyway, this is, last year, there was a near fatal accident there. It's been a continuous problem. And the solution the people of the neighborhood are asking for is 2 signs, of dangerous curves.
There would be a curb warning sign with a speed placard on it.
You're right, but that's not there now. There's nothing there.
I'm gonna go back and look at.
I think you must have misunderstood that before, because it's clearly so much worse than a lot of the other places. I see where there's a sign. If you don't, not gonna do anything, give me a call. I would appreciate a call. But I think it's pretty clear that it's necessary.
I got a road. 648 going on to 703, and goes all the way to 56. That's me and Skip split that road in half. It is an unpaved road that has super high traffic. It's used as a crossover for people from Shipman to head down towards Wangina, as opposed to hitting on Deer Run and going to Craigtown Road to 56. It's a crossover. If we could do a count on that, I think we'll find out that it's pretty heavily traveled. I would like to see potentially maybe that being paved over the next.
What's that road name?
Eagle Mountain Drive. I brought it up last meeting. From 648 to 703.
That'd be at the end of the 6-year plan.
The end of the 6-year plan. Yeah. We'll arm wrestle, but let's get it on there.
It's, yeah, I was thinking that. I don't know why they heard it claiming, that's on the list.
Is it? Okay.
I think it-
I brought it. I hadn't seen it
I
up
think it was
the.
on the unpaved road list, I don't think it's in the plan.
Okay.
I think it was on the list.
Great. I'm good.
Anything else, Mr. Brown?
I do have some, do you have anything, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I did have one more thing to report on, and, I forget to see, we've had 2 requests for, interest in revenue sharing through Mr. Carter's office. Justin, we saw you last Friday.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I live on that road.
Last
Talk
Friday.
about.
Mountain View Road. We've been asked, they've expressed an interest for the county to apply for revenue sharing funds on their behalf, I guess. And then we did do a cost estimate on that road, and Mr. Carter has that estimate. And, it was 0.65 mile, and I think it was,
$107,000.
Gave that information to the board.
you gave that information to the board. And that road, I mean, that's a great road. The footprint's there. It's a road that certainly falls within the scope of our state forces, doing the construction and completing that road. One thing, Jesse, you were gonna get us a set of plans.
Correct. We have it.
Does it have existing 50-foot right of way dedicated to the county?
I imagine it does. I don't see how it could. It's 2003 subdivision, so
Yeah,
I'm sure.
it looks like it does, but if you could confirm that. if
I could.
the county could confirm that it's a
Yeah.
dedicated 50-foot right of way to the county, that would help me out a whole
But
lot.
who's doing the revenue sharing?
We haven't done any revenue sharing yet.
Y'all haven't done any revenue
I
sharing.
realize that, but who is gonna be the revenue sharing person?
It's up to the county. Typically, when a group of citizens, I can tell you how it works in other
I
counties.
tell you, it don't work that way in Nelson County.
You don't know what I said. I'm just kidding. Now, typically, a county will make application for revenue sharing funds on the behalf of a group of a homeowners association or a group of citizens. And if it's revenue sharing, can be up to 50% match from VDOT revenue sharing funds. Usually the county, what the other counties do, they ask me for an estimate, or they have a group of citizens that ask them for a road. The county determines, ask those group of citizens, what is your commitment to this project? And, a lot of times I give them a preliminary estimate, but like the estimate I just sent Mr. Carter on Mountain Ridge, it's a definite number.
Yeah.
And if it's 50-50, these residents need to commit, talk to each other, commit that if the county applies for this fund, if the county applies for these revenue sharing funds, you can furnish the match.
Right.
That's how it works.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of different ways that can happen. I mean, we're working on one in Campbell County now, it was $178,000 project. And the residents that live along that road, they came up with 50%. They mortgaged, they took out mortgages, they did whatever, but they came up with their 50%. And after you go through the application process, when, when the revenue sharing is announced, the results of the application period, if that project was funded, Steve would get a call from somebody in VDOT saying, Mr. Carter, your project was, I'll get a letter saying your project was selected. And that's when Mr. Carter would go to the board. He would get they call it an appendix A, but it's really an invoice. Invoice the county, and the county would write the check, but they're not gonna write the check until you get the money from the property owners.
Is that the process that's going on up on Woods Ridge?
Yes.
That would be the process,
Right.
yes.
Old Ridge.
Yeah, that would be the process,
Yeah.
and I pointed out to Mr. Carter in my email, revenue sharing is a little different. There are tier 1 revenue sharing projects and tier 2 revenue sharing projects. Your tier 1 revenue sharing projects are your revenue sharing applications that deal strictly with economic development, economic access, those type of projects. Your subdivision streets and that people are seeking revenue sharing on, they are tier 2 projects. And the way this funding goes, VDOT is going to fund all the tier 1 projects first. And whatever's left is what they fund tier 2. It might be 50% match, but it could be a 54% match. I mean, VDOT might not have of all the funding left in the revenue sharing balances. It might not be enough money to cover 40% of the cost, and the residents would have to come up with 60%. So it's not a guaranteed 50% match from VDOT. It depends on how much of the tier 1 projects take from the revenue sharing allocation.
But the total beneficiary of that, are the people that live on that road.
That's right.
And that's why we don't do it, because you go and put a subdivision in, and the next thing you know, they want the state and the county to come in and put them a road in there. Well, normally, if it's done right,
Well, revenue sharing, after the rural addition program quit being funded through secondary road construction, well, this is really the only relief for these people that have live on an unpaved road doing a development of something that was not taken into the system.
well, it's an unpaved road, plus it's a private road.
A private road. This is the only really help that they can get from VDOT. But it does have to be a county application on their behalf. But that is Mountain Ridge Lane. Old Ridge Road, that was also requested. And been looking at that, I've looked at that twice. And I've had some of my staff do some research. The project is a little bit different because basically that was a subdivision that was created and there never was a public right of way established. It's basically just a 20-foot easement, ingress and egress easement. All those houses back there. There's no footprint. There was no, like on the road Jesse lives on, even though it wasn't built to state standards, it was graded. There's a great footprint there to where it's not a lot of work to do.
I'm still bet you it ain't old,
Old Mill Road is
50-foot right away.
I don't know, yeah.
Old Mill Road is a totally different type of construction. It's almost like new construction. We will have to, as far as the revenue sharing project, we will have to set up a preliminary engineering phase, a right-of-way phase, and a construction phase. I haven't done a detailed estimate because it's pretty involved. There is going to be a PE cost as far as doing plans,
But that is a state road to a point.
It is a state road to a point, but this is where Old Ridge Road takes off to the right. It's easy, before you get to the road that goes up to the winery. Right away, a right of way would have to be established, state. I'm not saying it couldn't be less than 50 feet, but typically it would be a 50-foot right of way that we would stake. We could stake that right of way. It would take then a survey would have to be done to establish who, the property owners that would have to donate the right of way. Donate the right of way, but it would have to be a 50-foot right of way, and they'd have to come from, some of the property owners that live along the road. They're gonna have to give some right of way. They'd have to give some property up for some right of way. That's a full-blown survey. Also, the utilities up through there, I see a lot of utility relocation, power poles. Not sure about the telephone poles, but I really won't know the extent of that until the right of way is staked.
That's probably the co-op and broadband.
Could be. I guess what I'm trying to say, gentlemen, I cannot get all that done in time to meet the pre-application date.
Yeah.
And I'm not comfortable with trying to rush through it, because if I rush through it, I want to give you an accurate number, but just roughly, and this is something that, you could take back to the property owners. I mean, for that road, I think you're talking between $500,000 and $1 million a mile, at least.
$2 million a mile.
Because I mean, there's no footprint there. There's heavy clearing and grubbing. The utility costs to move these poles, I mean, it's going to add up to some serious bucks.
But the cost of the planning that you're doing right now is.
I mean, I'm just doing planning right now at no cost.
Correct.
I would have to bring in some help for this right here. I would have to get our district L&D location and design section to help me do this, because it's got, it's a full construction project with right of way, with utility relocations. And I don't know what kind of message you want. We had two residents approach, make this request to the board. What I would like to know and ask you all to find out, how, to what expense do you want this road to be taken into the system? Because
I can be in touch with them on that.
I mean, I don't want to waste their time, and I don't want to waste my time or the board's time if this is something that just two people ask for and nobody else up there has a buy-in to it. So I would like some direction, Chairman Reed, on how to proceed.
It is 50 foot. Sent you the
Yeah,
plan.
it looked like it was 50.
I'd like to check it and talk to them, because I didn't know that was happening until all of a sudden I see Robert. So, yeah. All right.
Thank you for the information on that.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
I need to get in touch with Mr. Kessler, you're saying?
Yes, I'll
Ask him to give me a call.
ask Jeff to give you a call.
Okay. New and unfinished business, Montebello Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department application for an interest-free loan. Card?
The consideration is approval of a $40,000 loan through the county's emergency services loan fund to Montebello Volunteer Fire Department. As the board is aware, the county assisted with the purchase of their new fire tanker vehicle. And this would, I think, from the information we received, assist them with their share of the total expense. The application was made by Montebello VFD to the Emergency Services Council. The council approved the loan request unanimously. Now it's before the board to, for approval consideration of a $40,000 request. The loan fund has in excess of $500,000. Currently, the loan period would be 8 years and amortized over 8 years. And if the board consents to it, the treasurer will then take care of the necessary paperwork. Questions?
Mr. Parr, of course, not here today, says that he apologized for missing the meeting, but he's really in support of this and wants to see it happen, and I think we've got general consensus on that, so.
It meets all the criteria and setup that we did with that loan, so.
Does this need action?
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve for these folks to acquire their equipment, the application for interest-free loan,
$10,000.
$40,000. Amount for, yeah.
Okay, got a motion and a second, any discussion?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
You can.
Experience on the board, vital. Mr. Carter, reports.
Update on the status of the coronavirus in the county per the Virginia Department of Health's most recent report on their website as of June 3rd. 0 new cases of the virus were reported both over the past 90 days, which I wasn't sure that was correct, but that's what their site reported. And then 0 new cases of the virus over the most recent 7-day average. And cumulatively, to date, throughout the period of the virus, there have been 895 reported cases of the virus. And of this total, 41 persons were hospitalized and 13, unfortunately, there have been 13 deaths that have resulted from the virus. I think the 41 and 13 were about a 1-person increase from last month, or overall.
Mr. Carter, I've got a question. We still have signage on the building here that masks are required, and yet that's clearly not enforced. I'm wondering what the
What's the
protocol is for that.
contradiction with the government?
What's the protocol?
What we've asked the security people to do, because unless someone tells us that they've been vaccinated, if you've been vaccinated, you're fine. But if you haven't, we still are saying for the governor's guidance, you need to wear a mask. We're thinking as of June 15th that those directives from the state are going to be further relaxed, and then we would just forego any requirement to wear a mask in the courthouse. But at this point, we don't know when people come into the building, unless we ask them if they have been vaccinated or not. If they indicate they haven't been vaccinated, we ask them to wear a mask.
Do we have any offices still not 100% open?
No. That's in my report.
You sure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All county offices are reopened as of May 3rd, and telework scheduled for county staff of 2 personnel, 2 different offices, but just 2 individuals was concluded as of May 31st. If that's something contrary to what the board understands, please let me know, because that's not my understanding. American Rescue Plan, the first one half, $1,449,988.50 of the federal ARP funding. We've actually received that funding. The next one half, which would be a similar amount, will be received about 1 year later. That's the way the law was established. And the county's budget that becomes effective July 1st, FY 21-22, includes that total amount of funding, almost $3 million. So we're still trying to grasp. We haven't really focused on this for the last week or so. There's guidance out on the use of the funding, but we probably need more insight and perspective. But what I proposed here is maybe in July or August, we'll have a work session and discuss possible uses of this funding. It's a lot of money.
You bring that up at the next meeting when everybody's here.
Yeah, of course. And we have, I think, until 2023, is that right? For the total funds to be expended. So there's really no rush. But still, the money, the first half is here, the second half will be here probably within FY 21-22. Capital priority projects, if I report to the board, we do have consensus to go ahead with the assessment of the properties in the 29 corridor, subject to discussion today. And as I've noted here, the other priority projects the board established that were included in the FY 22 budget with funding, we're ready to go forward with those. And if I may, the communications I've sent to the board, we have engineering services, architectural services, and financial advisory services. So it's really predicated on the board to say, go for these things, or do we or do we not? And the funding's there. July 1st is right around the corner, and at the staff level, we're ready to go, subject to any questions from the board. The Piney River wastewater system, pattern construction is here this week, and we're thinking they're going to finish the project this week to refurbish the Simcoe pump station. It's the primary pump station, wastewater pumping station on Route 56 West.
How long has this been going on?
It's been going on for a while. One of the delays has been there are 2 8-inch check valves that are to the critical installations. We're taking 2 out and replacing them. They sent the wrong ones, and the delivery time for the initial delivery was pretty lengthy, and then the delay was just about as long. But I spoke to Mr. Patterson, or communicated with him last week, and he indicated they were here this week, which I've received confirmation of today or yesterday, and subject to a couple of changes that we may approve, which are minor, but would enhance the operational ability of the facility. They should finish this week. The check valves are here now. The general reassessment, we were hoping that Mr. Wampler would come and report to the board in July. That's what I put in my report. But in speaking with him, he's indicated that probably September is a better time frame. So we'll keep that on track before the board. And in the past, when we had the draft of this ordinance, the board can annually, over a period of time, 2 or 3 of the assessments during my time here, passed a local ordinance that limits the time that the Board of Equalization will sit during the general reassessment. We've been working with Mr. Payne, we've modified that so that it could just be a permanent ordinance. And we'll introduce that to the board probably in July or August for approval consideration as far as going to public hearing. What it would do is, as drafted, the Board of Equalization or applications would be due by not later than April 15th of any given year, and then the board would have until, I think, June 1st to finish their work. That would prevent the appeals, et cetera, from just going on throughout an entire year. A quicker resolution. The VDOT Transportation Alternative Grant Projects, we're working with planning district staff on those, and they're on track to be submitted by July 1st. We still need input from the PDC staff on the local match for the Livingston grant, which we'll probably poll the board on that once we really know what it is. Redistricting, thought occurred to me as I wrote my report. We're not ready, we don't have sufficient information yet to, I guess, begin the redistricting process. And Susan Moore's sort of preliminary look at this, there may not be a need to really reshape the districts. They may be able to maintain the districts as is. Lastly, just to note that the Locking Festival has announced their schedule for this year. At present, in lieu of one large weekend show, they proposed or are scheduled to do 3 sort of smaller scale weekend shows over the last 3 weeks of August. Not as
For
massive.
3 weeks in a row.
Mhm.
School starts,
3 weekends in a row.
Yeah,
3 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How many people is that gonna be?
They're
I'm
saying
not sure.
500. I read something about 500.
That's not very many.
Yeah, I would think there might be as many as a couple thousand
All
or
right.
more.
Yeah, I think that's more realistic.
We'll get more information before to the board. But this announcement came out, I think, last week, so. Questions?
I just heard that, they were talking about just having 2 bands, so they can't be that big.
I don't know if, I mean, I don't even think it's big names yet.
Yeah, one was big, one I heard of.
Yeah, Tedeschi Trucks is the.
Oh, Tedeschi Truckers are gonna be there? Yeah, they'll get 1,000 people at least, minimum.
Yeah, maybe a couple thousand.
Yeah, if truckers are gonna be there, it's gonna be this couple thousand.
That was the one.
Yeah.
Mr. Carter, where are we on the RFP for the comprehensive plan?
I spoke to Ms. Bishop last week and again today about it. She's working on a draft that will be presented. It's a working process with, I think we're trying to get it out by the 1st of July or so. But we'll certainly share that with the board and the commission, of course, for comment before it's ever publicly advertised. We talked about it, and I've asked Ellen, let's make that a high priority. And we're also confirmed with Dylan, and she's working with Mr. Payne, of course, on potentially several zoning amendments. The ordinance is pretty open, flexible, and it's a question of should it be more limiting or not. There's a proposed development, significant development that is basically rental properties, vacation rentals. Seemingly per review of our discussion with Dylan, it's not really addressed, but it's not really prohibited either. It's potentially a major investment in the county, but it would be 32 cabins of different sizes on a 360-acre property, just for vacation rentals.
There's a lot of acreage.
Yeah. So it's,
And it won't have any school children.
Right.
well, that's the question. Is it a good thing, or should we somehow address it?
Well, the thing we need to address is these vacation homes that, what's happened to it is it's taken the market away from the young people.
Right.
And
That's
these
not-
people coming in buying 5, 6 homes at a time and turn them into these,
Yeah, I have to disagree.
and the kids can't compete with the prices they're willing to pay.
Well, I mean, that's a grand scale issue. When you talk about secondary homes versus vacation, I mean, we talk about this in the Regional Housing Partnership all the time. Nelson's a unique situation because we have a tourist-driven economy. And this is not a true number, but one that we speculate is true. It's about 50% of Airbnbs that are today, more often than not, those Airbnbs were just somebody's secondary home. And otherwise, if it's not being utilized as this short-term stay, it wouldn't be rental property. I mean, a condo in Wintergreen, more often than not, is probably not going to be somebody's rental property. It's going to be an Airbnb. You know, you do run into a philosophical piece on this, you know, and how it works. I'd be interested to know how much of the Airbnb revenue translates into lodging taxes versus, you know, Wintergreen plus the Village Inn. And I imagine we'd find out that it'd probably be well over $1 million.
I understand. Well, one thing, I have asked them to look at that for a discussion with you, and I don't know the board, you know, I'm not really a strong advocate of increasing taxes, but the board does now have the flexibility of increasing the lodging tax up to 10%.
What is it currently set up?
4.
Okay.
So that's something that could either be a
But
deterrent.
that is an industry that has just gone through a bath.
I'm sorry.
That is an industry that just went through
Oh,
a
I'm not
bath.
strongly suggesting you do it. I'm just noting that you have the ability to do it.
I mean,
I was under the impression that we were not getting taxes from these vacation rentals that much, but
Yeah,
supposedly we getting some significant money.
I had an inquiry about that last week, and my response was that the commissioner's office, who has that responsibility, is very active, proactive, and constantly trying to find
I thought it was $70,000 or
the
something.
VRBOs and others, and, you know, have them ensure that they pay their appropriate taxes. You know. Yeah, I've spoken to Ms. Campbell about it several times over the last couple of years, and she always assures me that they're constantly on the lookout for those the people who aren't reporting.
I noticed in the report that the revenue that we're getting is surpassing what was in the budget for last year.
Yes, can be,
Right,
it's
already.
report will note. The lodging, and typically the meals exceeds the lodging. This year's a little bit in reverse, but I think the May or April end of month report indicates we're about a month away from actually hitting or exceeding the total number for both of those taxes.
oh, wow, for food and lodging?
Mhm.
That is insane. What's that dollar number?
1.2, 1.4, maybe 1.6.
So we're already almost there.
Yeah, that's right, I got it, not off the top of my head, but yeah, when I looked at it last week, I was very encouraged that it looks like if we hit the same number for April or May as for June, then we'll either equal or exceed that
Wow.
revenue estimate.
All these people in these big cities wanting to get out and live somewhere besides the big cities for a while. And that's why our lodging
Yeah,
stays.
1.7 million.
Is that combined or is that? That's great.
Anybody have anything else for Mr. Carter?
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Board reports? Mr. Barton?
Yep.
Mr. Harvey?
No.
I have something for directors.
appointments, that's separate.
Yes, that's separate. I'm going to start with reports. Recently, county staff and I and Mr. Parr had a meeting with Amherst County to discuss potentially the ag facility. I know there's some questions and comments and trying to figure out how we move forward. And, you know, we're thinking currently it's do a study of sorts for a particular piece. I know we'll go into more details. We find out more details, and then we, Mr. Parr, have some more correspondence coming up with them. So
What
we'll,
was that? I didn't hear.
we're meeting with Amherst more to talk about the ag
Oh,
facility essentially,
okay.
and what process would probably be the most ideal for Nelson. So we'll keep you apprised as we find out more.
And I don't have any reports to put forth. Appointments.
I passed out an updated list. We have kind of a long list this time. For the JAVA Board of Directors, we have a Dana Quillen who wishes to be reappointed. Do you want me to just go down the list now or?
Maybe we can do them one at a time and just
Let's do
check
it.
them off.
Let's do it by, department,
Um,
Java.
Yeah, I've served with Dana for the last 2 years. She's excellent. She shows up, she contributes, she's good. So I would certainly like to see her reappointed.
Let's do it. Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion for that?
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Dana, Quillen for reappointment to the Java Board.
Second.
Motion second.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
And the Jefferson Madison Regional Library Board, Marcia McDuffie stepped down, and we have received an application from Olita Childs for that position.
And then like to make a motion?
I don't know her.
Anybody know?
Do you know her?
I do not, but read her curriculum that
Yeah, she looks
looks good.
good.
Speech pathologist.
Social worker. All right, that's good. It's in your district. Well, I'll do it for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that for appointment for the Jefferson Madison Regional Library Board for the term expiring 6/30/2024 to appoint Aletta Childs.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Excuse me.
And for the Nelson County Broadband Authority, everybody on that authority, their term expires at the end of this month. And I've reached out to everybody and heard back except for Mr. Harvey, about if they'd like to be reappointed for another term. So Mr. Harvey, would you like to be reappointed?
Yes.
Okay. So we can do all these as one?
I'll just read each name. Mr. Chairman, I move that we reappoint, that's Skip, how about you do it since I'm on that?
Appoint Jesse Rutherford, Harry Strong, Tommy Harvey, Tommy Spear, and Larry Saunders
Second.
To the Broadband Authority.
to the broadband.
Thank you. Second.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Next, the Economic Development Authority, we haven't heard back from Kim Bryant. Jump Board,
What is the status with the jump board, Steve? They've been under hot press recently.
I haven't seen it. I'll make it a little bit, but not recently. Have to look into it.
I'd be curious, because apparently there's some fairly big scrutiny on it. You've heard about that?
Yeah, about 6 months ago.
Yeah,
But nothing since.
I hadn't heard anything else.
Yeah.
Could you follow up with that?
Dolores Green does not wish to be reappointed, so we will have that position open.
No.
Library Advisory Committee, I sent a letter out to Jean Holiday. The Region 10 Community Services Board, Peggy Whitehead would like to be reappointed.
Okay, I move that Peggy Whitehead be appointed to the Region 10 Community Service Board.
You got a second?
Second.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
And the Social Services Board, Diane Harvey does wish to be reappointed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Diane Harvey to the Social Services Board.
Second.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Now, there's an opening there on that board.
Yes.
Okay, well,
For the,
we'll wait till we get down to that, or
There's nothing there.
we do have that opening, the South District.
has a person applied to that
I haven't received
for
anything.
Mr. Burdick?
I haven't.
I was under the impression that he was going to apply.
Okay.
So I'll go check with him again.
Mm,
There's no one else is.
no, I haven't gotten anything. And the local board of building code appeals, we do still have the vacancy on that board.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Correspondence?
The trains situation in Favre is continuing. Currently, the Congressman's office is going to the Office of Safety in regards to the railroad. Hopefully we get somewhere. They're very difficult. Hopefully we get some answers for the people in Favre. So.
Any other correspondence? Okay, directives.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I've had some discussions with other board of supervisors kind of in regards to, the topic of a swimming pool. Obviously, we know that's extremely popular amongst the public. I want to make sure that we can echo, if not, if we need to correct or make it whatever the new motion would be. Currently, what is the status of the RFP in regards to the general project that we've spoken about in regards to Larkin?
We're ready to proceed with the project.
Okay,
Got the contract, the call I got, sorry, I didn't mean my phone to ring, was Mr. Hines who's the principal of Timmons, so,
Sure.
I'm making an inquiry about, are we ready to go or not?
right. I want to make sure that we have a specific one in there in regards to a public swimming pool, in between the areas of Livingston and Ty River, making sure that specifically we can get on that as well. So if you're doing that in the near future,
So let me elaborate on that. I'm probably not being specific enough in my reports. So the assessment would then enable, we can proceed now with the recreation study, which would, come up with a concept or several concepts and cost estimates for each concept. Question is where to put it.
sure.
Yeah, that would be the first step of this property assessment is it feasible for development for multiple purposes? And if so, then we can look at using those footprints for recreation center, county offices if need be, school facilities, basically whatever the board would decide to do.
I just want to make sure we have a specific scenario in regards to a public swimming pool,
Are
absent.
you making a motion?
This is a directive, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
I'm confirming this, make sure if it already exists or if I need to complement it, making sure that motion
The-
already exists.
The FY '22 budget has, I think, $30,000 for this study. We've done a study previously, and it was updated around 2012. So the architects are already under contract, would use that initially as.
So then they can research the current lands that we owned and any that may be available between, and I want to make sure that we say this between Livingston and Ty River, because this would be a great opportunity.
Right,
Um,
that's at least from the staff's perspective, the premise that would be, in that 29 quarter between Livingston and high school, middle school campus.
Sure, good.
Does the previous study include analysis of existing county properties as whether they would be suitable?
Not-
If I'm understanding the directive, and what it's about is separating this particular project from the other sort of development ideas, that the need for a swimming recreation area is so incumbent that we should move forward on this before we shouldn't have to wait for the other stuff to occur. This has been a priority of the board for 20 years, from what I understand, from talking to other board members, and we haven't done it. I don't see why it needs to be attached to development as a whole. I mean, directive, if.
Sure.
I don't quite understand maybe what a directive
You
is.
don't
I'm
understand.
asking you to look for land that would be appropriate to develop as a recreational swimming area outdoors for the summer.
That's not what the board decided. about.
Well, that's what we're doing now, though.
What I'm asking is, there when we do this work, I'd like to see that there may be the ability to have the independent school, public swimming pool area. You know, is that something that we can do in addition to whatever's happening with that, and just creating another scenario?
That's what I foresee in doing the project, is several
Yeah.
different options.
And we just
Then the
want,
board can decide which one they prefer and then how to pay for it.
sure,
That's the next step. But you also have to have a place to put it on,
Yeah.
which we don't have at present.
right, we don't have to.
Well, what I understand that you were going to direct was that we should make it a priority to find.
It's already established as a priority.
But before the other things happen, we can separate this from those other ideas of development and things that need to be done in the county, and prioritize this in a way that we can direct you, who works for us, we can get the 3 votes to look for a place for a swimming pool. Outside what we're talking about in terms of your development of the land you're talking about.
We've asked the engineer to also do that, is to look for other properties and work for the county. I mean, it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the cart or the horse? Because we can go ahead and proceed with the recreation project and show you what the facilities could look like and how much they may cost. Then you can decide which one you want the most, but you still have to have land to put it on.
That's right, and we talk about recreational facilities, I'm talking about a specific recreational facility. I'm talking about outdoor summer swimming area.
No, I understand, but
We have
if I may,
never-
you were in the minority when that vote was taken.
Well-
But I'm not sure I'm in the minority now.
We have
It's-
never discussed that outdoor swimming pool, to my knowledge.
I don't think we have either.
No,
No,
it's always been the indoor.
indoor.
The study in 2012 by Mosley Architects from Richmond had an indoor and outdoor facility. And I thought we would look at it that way, and then, no outdoor facility or no indoor facility, and show you the options and what they may cost, then you decide what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do all that within the scope of the work that you.
I'm sure we can, but what I'm suggesting we do is we see this as a priority. Immediately, we begin looking for land that's suitable, hopefully near the water, accessible water and other thing, parking, areas like that. And direct the Department of Recreation to begin to look at kinds of places, swimming areas, which would be most appropriate for the people of Nelson County to use in the summer, to be a place that would augment our most important asset, which is community. And we have, I haven't talked to anybody in Nelson County that doesn't think that is an important idea.
Yeah.
That we should prioritize, we should do it. The other things might happen and they might not happen, but this is a thing that we should do. And there's other ways that the press can help us if they could somehow put in their story that if someone has the appropriate land for this project and they were willing to sell it to the county, they would sell it to the county. This is something as a community we need to do. We need to have something that brings us together as a community.
That's totally out of the scope of what we've been talking for several years now. We were trying to make something at the high school where the kids could be involved in competition swimming and.
I know, I agree with you, it's
and
totally
that-
different.
That can happen,
That's what,
that can happen.
but it hasn't happened.
Well,
And although I can see certain, that there's certain good things about that, I think it's much more important to have a place in which almost every other community in America has, where the people can meet together this summer with their children, with their grandchildren, and have an activity. And it doesn't have to cost $20 million. We could do it for $2 million.
it doesn't benefit my people whatsoever.
That's not true.
It is.
Because over there, they got the
Most of
Sunny
them
Creek
got their own
people,
pools.
well, then they don't care about it. And they could, the idea that they wouldn't come down to participate, I think they would. I think it's something that we need as a community, and from everybody I talk to, everybody from every segment of our community, what a great idea. Why haven't we done that in the past?
$25 million.
What?
$25 million.
You're talking about this huge scale thing, 25 million. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about
So-
a swimming area which people, that's open in the summer, that employs people from Nelson County.
Yeah.
And we do it.
All I really need to know is the board wants to try to start this month or wait till July 1st. Then we'll bring back, as I said, several
Well,
scenarios.
We can bring in that scenario as well.
I already said that, we'll do
Yeah,
all of that.
Let's bring in that scenario as well. Why don't you get started this month? I'm sorry, is that direct? That's guidance you're looking for anyway. All right, that's a motion, get
Just
started.
goes faster. I don't even need votes and
Great.
consensus from the board is fine with me.
Great, get started, and that adds in that scenario. Looking for,
We'll get the proposal from the architects
am I
and
right?
the board that has issues with it will, if not, we'll
I
just
think
sign off on it.
Does that?
Well,
Well,
it's all right.
also, you're looking for possible places to put it.
Well, it has,
Alright.
Mr. Barton, what else can I do? We have to do that.
I think that
I-
satisfies
well,
his attention. Because it
All I
satisfy
see
your
is
intention.
for-
Was
we
that,
have done
it
nothing
creates
for 20
the
years.
exact
That is not
scenario,
true.
only just a pool.
It's absolutely not true.
Well,
I'm the one who actually proposed the recreation center in 2010.
I'm not talking about proposing, I'm talking about having a place where the people of Nelson County can go and meet with each other and have a place for the kids to learn to swim and have recreation in the summer when they're not busy at school and other things that they will have.
So if I may, I have a question that's a
Sure.
little bit of a tangent before you.
Okay, sorry, I'll leave my.
You said, Mr. Carter, that we don't currently have a place that's suitable.
Well, maybe one
So-
place that I'm aware of, maybe two,
Well, okay, so,
but still,
because
I can
because
elaborate on that.
if the county currently has property that might suit that it is already county property, then that's a separate possibility that's not going to be covered in this, in this plan. That could expedite this much quicker than having it be subject to the finality of this plan and then coming
Well,
up with a proposal. So is that,
What I was saying, and I think I think kind of how we've treated that RFP, generally speaking, is that was also taking into consideration whatever lands we have, and having those, tenants, have that be a scenario as well, looking at whatever land we have and that may be available.
Yeah.
Is that
outdoor
Just-
facility?
outdoor, indoor? I'm still public swimming pool. We'll go with that. We'll argue outdoor.
Well, if we have both options, that's one thing, but I just want,
I'll elaborate on the sites, if I may. So the previous study looked at 3 different locations. One was the location of the tennis courts present location of tennis courts at the high school. That was for the building facility. Secondly was the area behind the baseball fields at the high school, which required significant grading and was the most expensive to site the facility on. Third was 18 acres adjacent, private land adjacent to the middle school, which is the property we're going to evaluate. So those are the 3 sites considered. The county does own the high school property, but the school board does.
And we also own the land beside Food Line,
And that's the second.
and we want that in there as well.
Yeah, the potential concern with that is, we've cleared it off pretty much, is we just have to ensure, which would be part of the study, looking at that site, that the underlying bedrock is not going to be a cost prohibitive factor.
You can engineer on top of that.
All those things, true. Yet, there is in Nelson County, a population that if they knew that the people of Nelson County would like to put a swimming pool on and had land that might be appropriate to what we're doing, might be willing to sell to the people, sell it to us. I know there's a piece of land next to the Thai River that is owned by a person who owns that land, but might be willing to sell it to the county as recreation area. That's why I think it's, if I could use the press, that you would get the impression coming from this meeting that we're really interested in this. This is a priority. This is something we want to do. And, we're looking for land, where to put it. We don't really know where that is. But like
I think-
what you often say, you work for us, right? So I'm asking you to look around and see if you can find.
Okay, so Mr. Rutherford was gonna,
I kind of made that directive in making sure that we stand alone. Another scenario, let's look at making sure we can do a public swimming pool. And there's land in between here and over there. And if you're gonna get started this month, that'd be a great compliment. Make sure that's its own thing. Does that make sense? I need to turn my mic on. Does that make sense, Mr. Chairman?
right, and you did mention to include property that.
Yeah,
that
the property that the county, that makes sense.
Because
I'm sure that's a great place. I think it's awesome.
So if I may, what I envision this project, the outcomes to be are similar scenario for a multi-purpose recreation center, right, indoor with a pool.
Sure.
Multi-purpose recreation center with an indoor and outdoor pool, and then
Just as maybe.
maybe number 3, outdoor pool only, maybe with playing fields, and playing fields for the other 2 as well.
Whatever.
Not necessarily.
If you just let us do it, submit it, you can critique it.
Those particular details, Skip, can be changed as we go. I mean, that's the minutia of a detail that can be eliminated. But this gets the intentions that you're looking for.
Does it get the intent I'm looking for? You think so?
It doesn't speed anything up any quicker than the results of the report, but it certainly,
It gets you,
it certainly makes clear what it is that we're looking for and at, and our intention to act on it.
and he's gonna get started this month.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna get the architects to submit their proposal.
Oh, sure,
And
yeah,
the stuff,
RFP,
and
so.
then they'll get it on it as soon as possible.
Yeah, there you go, that's your consensus.
Any other directives or any other business we need to consider?
We need a place to go to, some sort of bathroom facilities, both at Wayside, the tunnel, and the Blue Ridge Railway. We need that. I know you've been talking about that.
But we have portable toilet facilities.
I know, but we need more than that. Do you agree with that? Need more than just portable facilities?
Well, I mean, that's a capital project that we need to put in order with the rest of things. I don't like this just wondering, okay, let's do this, and let's do this. Let's put a plan together that,
I mean, I'm just.
Yeah,
Innovation.
we've been discussing that internally. Potentially the ARP monies could be used for that as facilities. the concern about changing from use affordable to permanent facilities is someone's gonna have to keep up with them custodially. I mean, they won't clean themselves.
Well, what you were talking about at the tunnel up there, putting, maybe having a staff person up there.
Yeah. Well, we have one on weekends, part-time now, he's checking it out. But yeah, that's one of the concerns about this permanent facilities, it's gonna add staff and expense versus the expense of portable toilets, which would,
That's not cheap.
no, it's not cheap, but it won't be as expensive as building the building and keeping it up.
No. Well, Pine River, you already got water and sewer. So that's not a big to do.
Well, there's already one there that Amherst put in. Amherst has already built one there.
On the Amherst side. Well, that's a long walk from Pine River to the Amherst side.
That's just a mile and a half, I would know.
Okay, can we,
That's something we can bring up
Yeah.
the next time we're looking at capital. If there's no other business, then we
how
have
move
a,
we continue, well, I know you got an executive session.
Yeah, I don't have. Do you want to do that?
let's do it, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Nelson County Board of Supervisors convene in closed session to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. A1, discussion of the assignment, appointment, or performance of specific employees of the public body. Second.
You need to get, you swear that right first.
Can we get a second, please?
Second.
Let's take a short break first.
Let's do that.
All right, let's vote on this real quick.
Yeah,
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
yes.
So we're going to the bathroom.
Yes.
Put
It's a
that
motion.
on the record.
Oh,
Recess.